All right. So, welcome to the DFS Power Hour podcast. We are finally live. I went through some technical difficulties. I do not have a webcam to show you my beautiful face. I ordered a monitor to my girlfriend's from Amazon. I bought a new mouse. I bought a new keyboard. But I don't know how to set up my webcam. But here we are. But for once, Scott has a working webcam, and he's with us today with me and Hodge. Hodge, dude, what's up? Scott, what's up?
Yeah.
What's up, guys? Week 1. That's what's up.
I know, man. It's really, it feels really weird because I've been, Hodge and I both have been balls deep in playing guys who we're never going to see again this season for the last 4 weeks, and now I have to play starters, and I don't know what to do.
Hey, rest in peace, Rough Web. Thank you very much for a wonderful preseason. 2, watching the Thursday game and then like after 3 or 4 series, not seeing the starters leave was it actually took me like half a second to process that. Like it was real football was back.
But the truth is that if the Eagles had put Sudfeld in, yes, that they probably would have had more success. But hey, man, Nick Foles, it's tough to throw the football when you got a dick that big. Scott, man, you ready for this slate?
Yeah.
You look so stoked. But I know you're about to bring a hot take, so let's go ahead and just start with Buffalo at Baltimore. Everyone knows Baltimore defense chalk. There's really not much conversation to have on Baltimore defense. But I want to hear what you have to say on Alex Collins. He's a guy that I think's like a good play, but I think the community thinks that he's a little bit of a better play than I think he is. And I think you might be on a similar page as me from some of the tweets I was seeing from you earlier.
Yeah, so that's absolutely right. I tweeted out earlier today that last year Alex Collins had 0 games with more than 20 carries. He also had only 1 game with more than 0.66 expected fantasy points, expected touchdowns. He only had 1. And like for perspective, like Melvin Gordon had 9, LaShawn McCoy had 7, he only had 1. And that's despite the Ravens having 6 games where they won by 13 or more points, 8 games where they won by 7 or more points. So we've seen games from him before where there was amazing game script, but he didn't really dominate in terms of usage, not a lot of touches near the end zone. And that's the biggest issue for me is even in blowouts, even towards the tail end of last season, the team was still getting Javorius Allen involved near the end zone as a runner as well as a receiver. And, obviously that makes little sense and that's foolish coaching, but that's how it was. And, I think that definitely caps his upside. And if he's not going to get targets, I don't think he is. I think he's an early down workhorse, seeding, passing down work to Allen. Then I don't see him as a must play. I think he's a very good play, stacked with the Ravens defense, but he's by no means a must play for me.
I'm sort of there with you, Hodge, man. I think you were really high on Collins early in the slate before we had some more value open up. Are you still there on him?
I'm not sure that you need to use him anymore with Connor.
Right.
So I think it's like an easy way to get away from him. I don't know. I guess put me right in the middle with where the rest of the industry is, and then where you guys are. Because like like you said, I'm not super high on him anymore. I just think Buffalo is absolute garbage up front. And last year they had a second level rank of 32nd when it came to allowing yards to opposing teams' running backs in the second level. And I think that that's just where Collins kind of makes a lot of his bread, right? Like that's where you're going to see him taking off on big runs. at this point, though, I just don't think you need to bank on something like that in primary lineups or in single entry stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you too. And I think the reason I like him less in the single entry 3 max type stuff is because I think he's going to be super popular. Like
Right.
you look at these guys who they do, okay, I'm doing 3 lineups and I'm going to play Connor on one. I'm going to pivot to the other 5K back on another. And it's like, that's going to be Collins for most of these guys. So
yeah, yep. I think most people are either playing 2 lineups with Collins in the 150 and then 1 with Connor, or the other way around, 2 Connor, 1 Collins. Right. Like
yeah.
I think they're going to be heavily owned.
Yep. But I think in like 150 max, 20 max, you definitely want to have exposure to Collins and the Ravens D as the correlation. I'm not playing a Buffalo Bill. I think you can make an argument for Charles Clay, but just not going to do it. You guys like either any of the Bills before I talk about John Brown a little bit?
I think a pseudo pivot off of Collins and Baltimore defense is LaShawn McCoy, who's going to be something like less than 4% owned, despite being $2,000 cheaper on DraftKings than his average salary last year. Obviously, like scoring potential is low because this offense is so bad and the opposing defense is so good. But I think he's at least a better play far better play relative to ownership. Still not an amazing play, but he's a contrarian pivot.
Right. And he's a guy that I mentioned in my walkthrough could find his way to a bunch of PPR points.
You need to email me those walkthroughs, by the way. I'm trying to read that.
I always do. You just never read it, but it's fine.
All right.
All right. Yeah, I think that's probably about the same on McCoy. I don't know. Are there any Bills that you're really into?
No, I'm good.
All right. Let's talk. All right. So let's talk John Brown.
What about
a little
Crab? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Let's talk John Brown and Crabtree. I have like this idea in my head that the Bills are going to be doing Tre'Davious White as a shadow because of scheme this year. They did it in their dress rehearsal on AJ Green. And he shadowed a few times, I think twice towards the end of last season. But if they're only going to do it against elite wide receivers, then he probably doesn't do it. But if he does shadow, John Brown will get the corpse of Vontae Davis, which is like the only real hole in the Bills' passing defense. And it's a big hole because he's terrible. You guys got any strong thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Vontae Davis is terrible, but I think that Tre'Davious White is not going to shadow week 1 because there's not really a clear wide receiver 1, and he only shadowed twice last year. And Michael Crabtree is not AJ Green. I don't think it's that glaring or obvious. I also think outside of Vontae Davis, it's not really a strong play for John Brown. They're not going to need to rely on him being a deep threat just because this game should be a blowout in their favor. Also, Buffalo surrendered the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers on deep passes last year. That being said, because I don't see this being a very favorable matchup for Brown, and we do know the one thing Michael Crabtree is good at is scoring touchdowns, and there should be a ton of good field position and near end zone volume for Crabtree in this contest. He's actually a decent play.
The problem with Crabtree, though, is the price that he is in relation to, like,
right, yeah,
Funchess, Sanders, Landry. He's definitely like the last one for me out of that group.
Yeah, I might like him more than Funchess, but
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I think I don't know. Like the only way that you're really spending, what is he, $5,400 on DK? What is he on FanDuel?
Let me check on FanDuel.
I guess what I'm getting at is he's 100% only
He's
in play
6,600.
in large
He's a little
fields.
expensive.
He's only in play in large field because of his price, right? So if you look at him at DraftKings, you have Manny Sanders, who's just chalk city week 1 at 5K. So going up to somebody like Crabtree just immediately creates a suppressed ownership just due to his price being above somebody who's chalk like that.
Right.
I don't really have any interest in using him in single entry or cash.
Yeah, fair enough. He's definitely. I mean, he's like, if you're doing the whole concentrated thing where you have like 3, 4, 5 guys that are like 70% plus, and then you have a lot of guys that are in the 5 to 10% range.
He's one of those guys.
Yeah,
Agreed. Absolutely
fine for that. And okay, moving on. That was a pretty easy game to go over. The Jags Giants game, I think is a game that I'm getting more interested in as the week goes on. This is a game where these are two teams that had high pace last year, which is surprising as the Jags were a team that you would expect to be run heavy, so they would be slow, but they were up in pace, and that was because they don't want Bortles to have to think, so they try to keep things moving. And then the Giants may be a little slower, but Pat Shurmur seems to be a quick hitting type offensive coordinator. Do you guys have any interest in this game if we consider that it might be one of like the 5 or 6 highest pace games on the slate?
Yeah, so I think you hit on the first part is pace of play there between these two teams. The only concern is that we see a little bit more of a game management and Fournette just actually rushing the ball 25 plus times against the Giants defense. I think Cole is the easiest fade in large field, so 20 max or 150. I think Cole is an absolute I would honestly probably have 0 of him if I was doing 150, which I've already said that I'm not doing this year. I'm sticking to a lot more 3 max stuff. I think Moncrief is such an easy pivot, and I think Westbrook is such an easy pivot away from Cole. But the thing is I think that's being talked about now, as we're like Monday, it was like Cole was a lock, and I think you're seeing some people pivot off of him. So those guys may not be as good at pivots as I originally was hoping they would be.
Right. Yeah. For me, Cole's like fine. That's how I feel. Fine.
Yep. Fine.
Scott, what do you think about Cole?
Yeah, I like Cole. He averaged a 25% market share last time Lee was out of the picture. He's going to get about 33% of each Giants cornerback, and we know there's one good one and 2 very bad ones. Leonard Fournette, I think, is a really good play. I think Jacksonville smashes the Giants. I think Saquon Barkley is probably the cheapest this week that he's going to be all year. But I see on my lineups that I have now, I really don't have a lot of exposure to this game.
Yeah, I guess my question is like,
Bortles doesn't play. Your boy.
I don't have love for like the Jags passing game here. Yeah. I don't really see it. Fournette is a guy that I absolutely want exposure to in large field tournaments because, running backs who lose weight coming in, I want to get exposure to them early. I wish that this was a different spot, but definitely going to have some exposure to him. He's not safe by any means because we did see Yeldon and Grant get pass work in the preseason, and if that continues, he's not going to be worth those $7,000-$8,000 price tags. But I do think he's a interesting pivot off of like Gordon and those guys.
I think Fournette honestly might be a bell cow this year. So
I agree.
His price could just start skyrocketing after this week.
I think this might be the cheapest that we see Leonard Fournette maybe after week 2. And I also think, and this is maybe just reading too much into preseason, but he was in on a lot of third down snaps and like catching the football during preseason, which I think absolutely, like if that's the case, then he's going to skyrocket in price, and I'll probably own him until he hits like that 9K mark, like if that's going to be the case for him. So I think this is the cheapest that we see Fournette all year.
I think it's one of those that price is either going like way up or it's probably going to go down a little bit depending on his pass game usage. But it's like you're not going to have time to decide to use him because it'll be too late. So if anyone understood what I just said there. All right. Giants, Scott, do you have interest in Beckham since he's so cheap on DraftKings?
Yeah, he is very cheap relative to his average salary last year. I think it's like 1,500 less. He's going to draw very low ownership. Jalen Ramsey's dinged up. Also, cornerback matchups have never mattered at all for Odell Beckham Jr. That said, it's not the week where I really think I need to get too cute.
What if I told you that he's not going to be that low owned?
Yeah.
Yeah, then probably not going to have any of him. But TJ Hernandez is on him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. People are starting to, Odell Beckham's a sneaky tournament play, but I think by Sunday it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning too. Like, he pops up in the top 10 in wide receivers when it comes to tags over on FanShare. And I think anytime you see somebody start to creep up there, he's currently at 9. Honestly, there's a good chance that he only comes in like 5 to 10% lower than somebody who's like Chris Hogan or Keenan Allen, who I think people are using as like cash staples. I think he's actually going to be owned. It's 7K. And he opens up. I know it's an extremely easy week, but he still opens up a lot. People who want to force in Gronk, they'll just get off of Antonio Brown or whoever it is and get down to ODB just because people are talking about him. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I've also seen people like incorrectly say that Ramsey's not going to follow him into the slot and he'll play 30%, but the reason that Ramsey didn't really play the slot last year is because they had a stud in the slot, and he's gone. So Ramsey's going to follow him. Right, Scott?
Yep, I agree.
Didn't he popped up on the injury report today too, right?
Ramsey? Oh, he just wanted to say he had a bum ankle so that if Beckham burns him, he can have an excuse. No, but it doesn't sound like there's anything to be alarmed about with the ankle. If we get more news that like he's legitimately limited, then yeah, I'm definitely going to play Beckham, but I don't think we're going to get any of that.
Is it just me, going back to the Giants side of the ball with Barkley here, is it just me, or does the public perceive the Jags run defense stronger than it actually is?
Probably, but they also got better towards the end of last season. So it's like a weird spot. But I mean, they do. Dante Fowler's out, I believe, suspended for week 1. So
Yep.
I mean, there's a chance. I'm just not going there with Barkley.
I mean, he's going to get a ton of targets, so I think that the run D isn't even that big of a deal anyway. But I think he is low relative to his expectation. But that's like 9 running backs and like especially 5 running backs, where it's an even larger discrepancy.
Right.
But I don't see much from this game.
Yep. Next game, Bucks at the Saints. Sounds like Drew Brees is working his way up to some chalk at the quarterback position. I don't pay up for old white quarterbacks, but it sounds like he's going to be like possibly second, first, third most owned in that range. He has the second most tags on FanShare, and those tags were early, whereas like Dalton's getting the late tags. Yeah. People want the salary. They're going to use Breeze. Not even on my radar. I think the big question for me is to Kamara or not to Kamara. Where you guys stand on Kamara, and tell me if I'm wrong on Breeze. If not, we'll just move on past him.
I think I actually like Breeze a lot. It's a great matchup. Obvious stacking options. You could stack him with Kamara. You could stack him with Thomas. Tampa Bay has 2 cornerbacks and their one only good cornerback doubtful for this week. That being said, Johnny is the quarterback GOAT for DFS, and I've learned to just trust him on this position, though I'll fight him on the other 4. So sure, let me take out all those Drew Brees lineups and we'll bicker over one of the cheap ones. But Kamara, yeah, I'm going with Kamara. It just seems a little too easy. He put together last year what was arguably the most efficient running back season of all time. He finished 4th in fantasy points per game, despite getting outsnapped by Mark Ingram and out-touched significantly by Mark Ingram. Now, guess what? There's no Mark Ingram, and the only other running back on the roster was signed just 5 days ago. I mean, they did also start to use Kamara as a bell cow towards the end of last season, and I think that's what we're going to see again this week. And it's a great matchup. You know, what's not to like?
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's a must in head-to-heads almost to block Proctor. Like, I don't want to have 2:30 or whatever time it is Eastern roll around and be looking to, you know, swap out Melvin Gordon out of my flex to some trash ass spot because I'm trying to, you know, play catch up against the Kamara. I truly think that I think I'm going to block with Kamara in head to heads. I'm gonna play him. I'm gonna play him in cash. I was on him all week. I got off him a little bit just to go with a bunch of cheap guys, and I just decided that there's guys like Jarvis Landry, Stephon Diggs, who I can get at wide receiver, who are just gonna give me great target share of overall, a great market share of overall targets, and just be able to use Kamara at running back. So that's where I'm standing.
And I was talking to Scott the other day about like what me and Horst were talking about him, and me and Scott were talking about him, like bury you plays, where these guys that can just, you know, hyper efficiency, you know, whatever, that they can score, you know, 30, 40, 50 DraftKings points, which Kamara getting 20 plus touches is absolutely in that realm. And if they do have one of those games, they bury you. So if you don't have them, you're just dead. But whereas if you do play him and he scores, you know, 20, 24, doesn't really hurt you. I think really the only way that Kamara really hurts you is if he, you know, he gets hurt and he's only 40% or something like that. And at that point, then I would rather be making the pivots on that occurrence than if I didn't play him and he fucking buried me.
The large $250 and $100 SE on double up, or SE on double up, the 50-50 single entry on DraftKings. What do you think, Kamara? You think over or under 50% ownership for Kamara on that? The single
over.
Entry. Yeah,
Over.
see, that's what I'm saying. And I don't want to be underweight on that at all.
The $530 ones, they're like 200 people.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's probably over 50 in that.
Yeah. Yes.
And yeah, anything $25, $50 and up, he's going to have higher ownership. Yeah. So like, you know, if you're in the $5 one, he probably like 30, 40%, probably more reasonable. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about Kamara. Let's talk Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn. Sounds like Cameron Meredith is, you know, limited at best. I don't think he is even going to play much, if at all. So Ted Ginn's sort of going overlooked, where you know, Bucks are burnable. So, you know, if Breeze has this huge game, it's probably because he landed some bombs, and you know, those are going to Ginn. They're not going to Michael Thomas. Scott, what do you think about that? And do you think playing Michael Thomas and Kamara in a cash lineup, which I probably won't do, is like an okay thing?
I don't know that I'd play Thomas in cash, but I do like him a lot, probably a little bit more than you. Just these cornerbacks are so bad. Thomas is really good, although he never really sees massive volume like a Mike Evans or a Julio Jones might. He's always been more of an efficiency guy. You know, Ben Watson's in play too. I really don't love Ted Ginn too much, but that's probably about it for me.
I just think he's a flyer. Like Ginn has zero floor.
Yeah.
But with all their corners hurt, I think he's got some upside. He was also a better play last year than he gets credit for when they didn't have anybody else. And I think this is like the one time we're going to get him without Cameron Meredith really kind of fucking things up in the next few weeks. But no strong conviction. Hodge, any strong convictions on Thomas or Ginn?
I did early on in the week, and then as it came down to it, I as I really get to Kamara. I think Michael Thomas is going to go up against Tampa Bay, who ranks 31st in adjusted fantasy points allowed. I know it's obviously week 1, but when you adjust that way for last year, and then Keenan Allen's cheaper, and he actually goes up against the 32nd adjusted fantasy point allowed team. And I think if you're going to go Kamara, you just go Keenan. If you're going to
I think Keenan's a terrible play.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We'll get to this.
All right, there we go.
Scott's on team fade Keenan. I'm more in the middle, but we'll definitely get to that one. But I get what you're saying, Hodge, in that like I don't want to just have massive like ownership on the Saints.
Yeah, I'm not looking to stack the Saints week 1 in cash is really what it comes down to. If you're going to play Kamara, then I think Keenan's a great way to get exposure to the Chargers. If you're going to play Michael Thomas, then I think Melvin Gordon's a great way to get exposure to the Chargers. So,
right. Yep. No, I'm with you. Yeah, I don't want to be with his as like tight as this slate feels. I don't want to be overexposed to any particular team.
Maybe I shouldn't bring this up. But what about Trey Smith, dude? Like, do you have like a 1%er?
No.
No? All right.
I mean,
play like 6 snaps.
Yeah, I think they love him as like Ginn's replacement.
Yeah, he's a great dynasty ad.
Yeah.
I'm not playing him in week 1.
Yeah. Hodge, bro, he made us our money in the preseason. It's
hard to let go sometimes, man. It's hard to let go.
No, I hear you. No, I think the Saints defense I think is a good play. I think Fitzpatrick gets a little more credit than he should. He's terrible.
Right.
And I think Peyton Barber is a guy that I'm probably just not going to play. And I think people are going to play him. I get it. You know, the Saints run defense is definitely their weakness, but
they're 10-point underdogs, and Jaquiz Rogers is the third down back.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Exactly.
Quiz and Sean Wilson are going to be their backs that are going to catch the passes there. I'm just not gonna. There's too much other stuff going on. That's a guy that I can take off my list and be happy to move on.
Yep.
And I'm not playing Mike Evans against Lattimore.
Nope.
I'm not playing Godwin or Deshaun because they're in a wide receiver by committee. Call it a day. You guys got any strong convictions on Bucks? I'm just not playing them.
Absolutely not.
Yep.
No, Deshaun Jackson might hit, but I'm not chasing it.
Yep. All right. Next one. This is a game that I like. I have not felt comfortable with yet. The Texans at the Patriots. Again, I'm just not paying up for non-mobile quarterbacks, so I'm not playing Brady. I think people think he's going to be chalk, but I don't think he is. So if you want to go with some game stacks and play some Brady in some tournaments, I think that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to do it. Labs thinks that he's going to be like 20% owned. I don't think that's correct.
Sorry, Levitan, you're wrong there.
Yeah, and I think Brady's like maybe 6th or 7th in tags on FanShare. That's probably about right. I think we put him in like the 5 to 10% range, which is fine if you want to use him in tournaments. I don't really know what's going on with the running back situation there. One day Rex Burkhead's going to be limited. The next day Rex Burkhead's going to be the feature back. The next day Silva's drooling over him again. The next day they ask Burkhead in the locker room, what's your role going to be? He's not going to comment on that. I have literally no idea what they're going to do. I don't know if Sony's going to play or not. Do either of you have a better read than me? I just feel like I'm clueless.
The only read that I have on this situation is that White is your tournament pivot, and it's pretty easy.
Yeah, and I think White is a good tournament play. He's definitely a better tournament play than Peyton Barber.
Yep.
Scott, any strong convictions on Patriots backs?
No, I agree, and I think those are good calls. Though, if the Patriots score as many touchdowns as everyone thinks they are,
right?
Who do you have at the top of your list in terms of expected touchdowns or projected touchdowns?
That's the worst part, is that it would be Burkhead.
It would be Burkhead and Gronk in the top 5 easily.
Mm-hmm.
And if you knew that Burkhead was healthy, I think he's a really strong play at price. But do we?
Well, the other thing, no, we don't because of James Conner, because of how open the salary is this week. A month ago, Rex Burkhead was like a lock for 70% ownership, but after all of that stuff comes out after the preseason, and then we're looking at the Bell holdout, there's absolutely no reason to play Rex Burkhead in cash. There's just no reason.
Yeah,
I still like Burkhead. I mean,
yeah, I guess what
reports on his injury were too damning, and the ones that were like overflowing in praise were like ridiculous. Where it's like he is going to break every record. He's a legend.
Even if Burkhead puts up an 18-point game on Sunday, I still don't think that you should. I don't know, man. There's just so much value out there. So why are you going to play a running back who is literally on a team that's notorious for running back by committee all the time?
Yep.
It's because they're going to rank top 2 in running back fantasy points combined at the end of the year. Like, so like, even though it's a committee, it's like the second most valuable, running back situation behind New Orleans.
Sure.
I mean, it's a tough call. Connor's easily a way better play, but Burkhead's still firmly in play in tournaments as well for me. I don't see myself having a ton of them, but it's not because I think he's a bad player or because I think he's super limited. I do like the James White call a lot. Chris Hogan, I think is in play. I think you could take shots on Dorsett even, and Gronk, could break the slate. It's tough.
Yeah,
but this is how it always is with the Patriots,
Yep. I'm not playing Gronk, just because I think the tight end value at the bottom is too good this slate.
I get it.
And I don't think you can feasibly play Gronk and Kamara. And I'm much more concerned that Kamara buries me than Gronk does.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that Gronk is just a negative EV play if you take a 16-week sample size. So I'm just not going to do it now. I'm not going to do it any week this season unless he drops below to an unreasonable price. And then Hogan is the guy that I just don't know what to do with. I feel like he's a good price, but I also feel like I should be more excited about him than I am. I mean, I think we all are. I think the entire community is that way, where it's like, if this was like a slate that didn't have so much value, I think everyone would be like, Hogan would be like a must play almost. But I don't feel that way.
I mean, he's really good touchdown upside too.
Yeah.
It's one of the things. So I was looking into Hogan, just because of the value on the slate. I'll probably say it another 9 times. But if you go back to some games where Edelman was missing and even Gronk was out, like he's only hit double-digit targets twice out of I don't remember exactly what the game count was, but I'm just not quite sure his target share is going to be what everyone thinks or wants it to be. And at $6,100, I would like action on Stephon Diggs having a better game than Chris Hogan, and they're like $200 apart on DraftKings.
Right, and that's where it's like, I would normally love Hogan, but I like other guys more. Like I think I like Jarvis Landry more. I think I like Diggs more. I like Fitzgerald more.
I think I'd have Hogan over Diggs, but behind the other two.
We'll get to Diggs.
All right.
I'm gonna fight you on that one. But so
the thing is, Thielen's in a smash spot too. But
yeah.
Thielen's been banged up, and he's also not Kirk's guy. So it's been close though. It's been closer than people think. One play that I think people are going to miss is that if Will Fuller's out, Bruce Ellington is the best $3,000 wide receiver on the slate, because the Patriots have. You can talk about the number one option all you want, yada yada. The one guy that they really have sold out against is DeAndre Hopkins, and so Bruce Ellington will play a lot in the slot. He will also be their wide receiver too if Fuller is out. He had a really strong connection with Deshaun Watson in the preseason. He actually had a tryout They played Braxton. They started Braxton and Bruce Ellington and sort of tried them out. And Bruce Ellington got Braxton Miller cut because he had such a good game. So he is going to be he's a $3,400 wide receiver that will be in the possible highest scoring game of the slate. Just a very easy way to get exposure to that game. And he's going to get similar targets to Keelan Cole in a better, more up-tempo spot. Probably neither of you were really even thinking of him, and that's why I love him so much.
Yeah, that's a really good call. I wanted to be super aggressive on Will Fuller, but it's looking like that injury is serious.
Yeah, he might not play.
No.
And the positive is that it's a 1:00 game. So if he's ruled out, there is a decent chance I'll end up with Bruce Ellington and cash.
Yeah, me too. If I wake up before 1:00.
Yeah, that's
Lamar Miller's, by the way, super cheap. Based on everything we're hearing this offseason, preseason, he should be used as a bell cow too. But he's another one of those guys who it's like, there's Kamara, there's McCaffrey, there's Gordon, and it's Connor's the must play. Do you really need to go down and slide in Miller? I don't think so.
You know what Lamar Miller is best at?
Averaging 3.4 yards per carry.
That and just losing,
running out of bounds,
losing snaps to other running backs on the team. And
right.
When Alfred Blue
he crushed with Watson. Yeah, are you on Watson at all? Because no one's on Watson when the guy broke the fantasy point per game record by a quarterback last year.
I think Watson is.
I faded him in redraft, but
he was my next topic was going to be that I think Watson is just a much better play than Drew Brees.
Dude, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
I think Watson is the
white people,
white
quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't pay up for old white quarterbacks. Deshaun
Even
Watson,
ones who get lured into multi marketing scams or whatever.
Yes.
Oh, that's the worst part
multi-level marketing scams.
So Deshaun Watson is not old, nor is he white. So I think he is someone who is interesting, especially when I think Cam is going to be more popular with just a mess of an offensive line in a gross game where both teams have O-line issues. I think, everyone wants to say, "Oh, we're going to bet the over," and then they just don't want to play Watson. So yeah, I think Watson is your. I really like Cousins too, but I think Watson is your pay up quarterback to use in tournaments because he's just going overlooked.
I think Watson is probably the smash quarterback play because of all the value on the slate. I do want to point out though that Watson had an extremely high interception rate on passes downfield in that very, very small sample size. I know there's not a lot of data there, but we do have a little bit of evidence just, with those games. So that's kind of my only concern with him, but I think he's an absolute smash pay. You said this a month ago, Johnny, and I think probably stuck with me a little bit too much because now I can't get away from it.
It's true.
I may not use a quarterback that doesn't have legs in cash this year. I think we're going to see guys in smash spots like Dalton, who's very cheap, or Kirk Cousins, who's very cheap. But on these first couple of weeks where this value is just through the roof, I want a quarterback with legs. I don't understand why I wouldn't do it.
Best part about Cousins is that Cousins is no one ever remembers that this dude will have 5 rushing touchdowns a year. He just they get to the goal line and Cousins just runs it in when he feels like it. It's so awesome. So that just makes me want to move on to this game, which is next anyway. Unless, did you guys have anything else you wanted to say about the other one?
No.
No, I will say yes. Deshaun Watson smashed New England last year, or kind of 25 fantasy points, but also New England only had 1 game of tape on him, or 1.5 games of tape on him. Now he has 7 games, but yeah. Let's move to Minnesota.
Yeah. So this if you're using last year's pace, these are 2 teams, and I think the Minnesota offense is still going to be pretty similar to what they were doing last year. But if you're looking at pace from last year, this is a game that's going to have insane pace based on San Fran and Minnesota from last year, and it's a game that I think would get a lot more talk if people just didn't have their dicks so up in this Cincinnati game that they forget that there are like these other up-tempo games that exist. And yeah, so Cousins the last 3 years has 5, 4, and 4 rushing touchdowns. So you have the possibility of a rushing touchdown from him every time he steps on the field. 1 in every 3 games he's gonna run the ball in.
4 games.
1 in every 4 games, whatever you want to call it then. Either way, still there. So then you also look at him with like his best weapons he's ever had against a defense that just not all that impressive. And also against an offense that I think will put points on Minnesota. So this is a game that
on Minnesota,
I think San Francisco will score on Minnesota.
How do you see that happening?
Because it's Shanahan.
See, all right, fine. That's a good argument, but like, look at Minnesota's track record at US Bank Stadium over the
Rhodes
past
might not
2
play.
years. All right, yeah. Still, no. They're playing a backup running back, San Francisco. I don't see them being that good.
They had a backup running back as their starter before he tore his ACL, though, too.
Who?
Jerick McKinnon.
I don't know.
This is not a safe game by any means. Like you can't play Cousins or Jimmy or any of these guys in cash. But this is the game stack that if this game blows up, not going to be remotely surprising. Like, do you remember the Washington Vikings game? It's like why the Vikings went after Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't a Pat Shurmur offense anymore.
No, I knew that.
Yeah.
But they promoted in-house, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. But, like they were a dominant, fantastic offense. Sure. They made Case Keenum, who like a mediocre backup, look like a top 12 quarterback in the league. Now there's a new offensive coordinator. I don't see them necessarily recreating that magic. I like Cousins, but I think the reason I like Cousins is not because, he scores a rushing touchdown every 4 games. I think
that's
it's
just a bonus.
Right, but that's barely anything that factors into my rankings. Why I like him is because, he's cheap. It's a good defensive matchup. And, his wide receivers are really cheap, and they're 2 fairly obvious stacking options. I will say he wasn't very effective this preseason.
Cousins? He had a good game and a bad game.
He had a negative grade per PFF. So.
In 1 game. The other game should have been positive. If it wasn't, they need to watch it again.
I think it's important to point out that this game
two negatives and a positive. Sorry.
No, you're good. This game could legitimately push like 140 total plays.
Yeah.
Like the pace of this game could be through the roof. And I think Minnesota's implied team total probably a little higher than I think it should be. I don't know if they should be full, if the Vikings should be full touchdown favorites here. And so I think they're like 20-point implied team total, whatever it is, should be much closer to like 21 and a half. But the pace of this game is exactly what I want to attack. And I think if you do game stack this, then you probably need to game stack it a few different ways, just so you can have exposure to both Thielen and Diggs, but then so you can also have exposure to both Marquise and Pierre, Old Man Pierre, and then maybe even a little bit of Breida. I just like stacking this game in 20 max. I think getting exposure to this game when all these other games are being talked about is a very sneaky way to get 140 plays into a game stack.
Yep. Yeah, I mean pace is what brought me to this game really, and of course Shanahan. If any offense is going to do something against the Vikings on the road, Shanahan with 2 weeks to prepare is who I'm going to bet my money on. But I also think that the reason I like Diggs so much this week is that Adam Thielen was dealing with the ankle injury. He rolled his ankle about a week ago. Didn't practice.
He hasn't been on the report in like 2 or 3 days though. I think Thielen's fine. For whatever it's worth, as of recording this right now, I think he's absolutely fine. He hasn't showed up on the report, so I understand what you're saying. Regardless,
I agree with you. I just mean that he hasn't practiced with them for the last however long, where they've definitely been preparing, for the 49ers for more than the last 3 or 4 days. So I mean, it's just like another small boost for Diggs for me, who I already liked. And Scott, you know the numbers when Diggs is not on the injury report. They're good.
Yeah, I mean, they're overblown because, well, it's only so throughout his career when he's not on the injury report, it's 16 fantasy points per game. But Adam Thielen, over his last 18 games, he's averaged 16 fantasy points per game.
He also did that with Keenum, who was just locked into him.
Yeah, but there's a reason he was locked into him, because he's been amazing for 2 straight years. He trumped Diggs and yards per route run in both last year and the year before. They're both really good. Diggs is great. He finished, he was PFF's 6th highest graded wide receiver last year, but Thielen was number 7. They're both really good. I want to hear more about this injury though, because I'll say something really quick. Looking at the cornerback matchups, both of them look phenomenal. So Adam Thielen's up against Quan Williams in the slot, a guy we targeted often last year. But then Diggs is going to run like at least half of his routes against Richard Sherman. The question is, what do you make of Richard Sherman? 2 years ago, that's like a horrifying prospect. Now, I don't know. That might be a good matchup. The guy's 30 years old. He's coming off of a ruptured Achilles. He also has
two ruptured Achilles.
Right. Also, nagging hamstring injury this preseason. And the guy's slow to begin with, where Stephon Diggs is, by every measure, one of the most cornerback-sensitive wide receivers this past decade. If you want to split it by speed of the opposing cornerback, and he has the most drastic splits of anyone. The other guys in the top 10 are all, elite speedsters, elite guys with elite 3 cones. Or if you want to look at PFF grade for the opposing cornerback, again, he's like number 1, number 2, or number 3. Des Bryant, of course, being one of the other guys. But so I just wanted to say that's especially important this week. And I think the matchup's good, but I'm interested to hear what Johnny thinks. He watched more preseason than I did.
I'm targeting Sherman.
Agreed.
How do you look this preseason?
Not good.
All right.
All I can think about with Sherman is watching Goodwin toast him in practice.
Right. That's another guy.
He was hurt half the time, which is not good when you're learning a new defense. And I'm, guys coming off of like major injuries like that, I'm gonna target them early, before they're back to where they are. Sherman's gonna be one of those guys that, people are gonna target for the first 6-7 weeks, and he's gonna get roasted, and then by like week 12, he'll be perfectly fine. And then I'll stop targeting him once he's back into form. That's sort of where I feel on him. I think Diggs is a really, really good play. He's $600 cheaper than Thielen. It seemed like in the preseason that Kirk was more down to just push the ball down the field with Diggs, which is something that he didn't get to do all that often in Washington because his downfield threats were garbage. So he was forced to throw to Crowder and Reed. But I think this is finally an opportunity for him to just let it fly, and I think we're going to see it. So I think the Cousins Diggs stack I really like.
I looked at preseason target market share, Johnny. You know that we talked about that a lot. But I will say there was very little difference. Cousins targeted Diggs on 28.6% of his throws, and Adam Thielen on 25.7%. They all ran
how many
a near equal amount of routes. If you adjust for routes, Diggs was a little bit better. He saw a target once every 3.7 routes. Thielen once every 4.8 routes. But here's the big thing. one target every 17 rats for Rudolph. Rudolph's been a guy I've been fading all offseason for redraft leagues, and you don't need a single share in DFS this week, but arguably that means targets should be more concentrated among these two wide receivers.
Yeah, I think the one thing too that was really nice about Diggs is just like he was like Kirk was like letting it fly with him. It was, I mean,
he definitely has way bigger upside than Thielen.
Oh yeah.
This week and every week.
Yeah, but again, Thielen will go under-owned because Diggs was the popular guy this offseason, for sure. If Xavier Rhodes is out, Marquise Goodwin, probably one of the best plays on the slate at his price. If Rhodes is out, 4,600, I believe he is, just ridiculously underpriced because his price is based on Rhodes playing. So
right, great call.
Next game. Dalvin Cook. I'm just kind of worried about him, so I'm not going to use him. Do you guys have any thoughts?
No, absolutely not. I think he's going to be a snap count.
Yeah, that's my concern. Tennessee, Miami. Delaney Walker, I think, is fine. Other than that, not really stoked about this game. I think it's two run-heavy teams that might have weather concerns. Don't want anyone.
This is the exact opposite in pace of play.
Yeah.
So I disagree. I don't know what pace you're referencing. Sure, last year Tennessee was abysmally slow in pace, but they have a new offensive play caller who all he wants to do is ramp up pace and be more pass heavy. Meanwhile, Miami was one of the fastest paced offenses over the past 3 seasons, or at least since Gase joined. I'm not on I think anyone on Tennessee outside of Delaney, but Miami, I mean, Kenny Stills, he ranked 24th in targets, 25th in fantasy points last year. That was with Devontae Parker and Jarvis Landry combining for 240 targets. Those guys aren't going to be on the field in week 1. And then you have Amendola. Tennessee was a seb to the slot last year, but I still kind of think Logan Ryan's good. But he's been one of my favorite redraft targets. He's going to be on the field like 80% more than he was in New England. And Albert Wilson's been my boy, and he's crazy cheap.
He's gonna split snaps with Jakeem Grant.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right, then he's not in play. But I think Amendola is, and I think Kenny Stills is a very strong play.
No, they're good. I was just gonna say those are like the only two. I just don't love this game because I think we're gonna get some weather. It's also very hot. I think we're gonna see a lot of
hot weather doesn't really impact fantasy.
Hot and rainy.
Yeah, rainy's not good. I didn't see that though. I didn't know it was supposed to rain.
It's Florida, dude.
Oh yeah, so it's gonna rain for like 5 minutes and then.
I just mean it's gonna be humid and gross. It's just like not something I'm really stoked about for guys running downfield routes.
I think that's overthinking it.
Maybe not. I mean, it's just not a game I was really in love with to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, from a weather standpoint,
it's going to be way more fast-paced with Terry Robisky out of the picture, I think.
No, that's a good call. Good way to keep me in check, Scott. I think you're right there. I said too much when the exact opposite of the last game. I definitely just think it's the slower side of pace of play, but
personnel
that's a good
personnel would lead to a slower game though. They're making Henry their guy. They bring in another.
Is he the guy over Deion Lewis?
I think Henry's
Lewis out snapped him.
I think Henry's role is extremely defined with first and second down.
Yeah, sure, but that's like every team has, or 80% of teams have an early down back.
Right.
New toy. Henry got the bubble wrapping.
Ooh, okay, that's the take.
Could be. No, it's like 100% what they did. Like Henry went in for a couple plays, took him right back out. I mean, his role is like defined. They're just going to barrel him forward. And then, with Gore and Drake, I think I think both these teams want to run the ball, whether that happens or doesn't happen. I mean, again, every team wants to run the ball, but we'll see.
I think Stills is a really good play, maybe just as good of a play as Cole in tournaments with ownership factored in, maybe better.
I mean, Stills
I
gonna
like
outscore
Stills
Cole
more,
like
yeah.
100 out of 100.
Yeah.
He's 1,000 more though.
There's no like breaking next gen stats here, but the Dolphins got roasted by tight end last year, like almost double digit touchdown. Like it was unreal. So I think Walker's in play here at a low percent in some large field stuff.
Oh, I would much prefer to play Delaney than Gronk for the 2K savings. If I want to play a pay up tight end, it's Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cincy Indy, which is now going to become literally the most chalky game on the slate. Dalton went from like nothing to having twice as many tags as every other quarterback on Fanshare. Everyone is writing about how Dalton is a quote unquote sneaky play, and they don't even realize that he's going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. Not sure it's even going to be close. Levitan is pumping him. Roto Grinders is pumping him. I believe some of the PFF guys early, I will say, were talking about him, and now, everyone wants to play these guys. But the thing that confuses me is like, if this game is going to go over this total, like everyone thinks it is, why isn't it moving? I mean, it's gone up 1 point and hasn't moved. Like, there are no sharps blowing their wads on the over on this, like DFS players want to blow their wads on playing these guys in this game. What do you guys think?
I will say, out of every defense in football over the past decade, no team has performed better at home than Indianapolis's defense. Arguably, they have like a better defensive home field advantage than like the Ravens and Chiefs. I think it's like a 6-point differential. That could be a factor. Could also be that, Dalton is still Andy Dalton. The offensive line is a little improved, but not dramatically improved. I don't know. I don't love him. I don't love him as much as the ownership does.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think
he's a great play on paper, though. Indy's defense is really bad.
They're bad, but the Vegas line just doesn't indicate that there are like any sharps out there with millions of dollars that agree with the fantasy community. You see what I'm saying, though?
Yeah, no, I get it. But, yeah.
Does that change? Does that change your thought process at all?
I don't know. I never really am too concerned with Vegas. I know you like to monitor the line movements and things like that, but I've kind of just gone off of my own analysis.
Hodge, your thoughts?
I think one of the easiest ways to sum up the Bengals as a team are that I would be in love with all of these players if this was like week 7 and these were their prices and this was the matchup. $5,800 Andy Dalton, Joe Mixon at $6,100 against a Bengals front an Indy front that really is like 20th, 21st when it comes to stuff rank for them, with running backs being stuffed at the line of scrimmage, and then AJ Green at $7,300, John Ross at $3,900. Like, I actually think all of their prices are great for this matchup.
Yeah,
I just don't need to use them. Like, there's no reason to use them. So that's the one part of me where I know that they're getting touted, but when you're actually clicking that enter button on DraftKings and adding them to your lineup, and like, well, shit, I have still $1,400 left over. Some of these guys are getting replaced on some people's rosters as they're making them. So I think their ownership will be higher than just because of how much they're being touted. But I truly do think they're in a good spot.
Yeah, and I think too, though, like if the Colts are as bad as everyone thinks, then they're just going to run the ball, and that kind of sucks. I don't know.
Joe Mixon is so on Yahoo. I entered a bunch in that $10 and the 109. I went in and removed a lot of Collins for Joe Mixon on Yahoo. I think they get up, and I think that Joe Mixon just gashes the Indianapolis front.
Yeah, and I think I didn't realize Joe Mixon had lost as much weight as he did, which makes me like him a little more. But
Why
Yeah.
are you so obsessed with running back weight decreases?
Because I don't like fat dudes who can't move, man.
You don't like
Anyway.
Eddie Lacy?
Yeah, no. But no, I think this game is fine. I think Jack Doyle is one of the strongest tight end plays on the slate. But I think the Bengals are all like solid, but if anyone thinks they're going to get them at low ownership, they're not. It's just not going to happen. Let's talk Pitt Cleveland real quick.
That's all
I
you
think-
say on your boy Jack Doyle?
He's one of the best tight end plays
Yes,
on
yeah.
the slate, right?
Yes. Yep. You're right.
Is there any more to say?
All right. No, you can move on.
He's like
I
tight
doubt
end
you.
one unless we get like really healthy Reed news.
Right.
Goes tight end one.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So, pick Cleveland. I think Tyrod's a really good play. I don't think he's going to warrant much ownership, but I think he's perfectly fine in cash. Scott, I'm going to let you talk Tyrod real quick because I know you like him actually even more than I do.
So people talk about the weather, but Scott Spratt, one of the PFF analysts who measures this sort of stuff and how it impacts projections, says the weather actually helps Tyrod Taylor, just based on like average depth of target and mobility and how he's performed in rain and wind in the past. But here's a cool stat. Pittsburgh ran a zone coverage defense on 80% of their defensive plays last year. It was second most. And over the past 3 seasons of 32 quarterbacks, Taylor ranks 4th best in fantasy points per dropback against zone defense. But against man defense, he ranks 6th worst. I think Jarvis Landry is the obvious stack here. Mike Clay, in his projections, actually has Tyrod Taylor as the number 2 quarterback this week.
Yeah, I think he's like a really good play. And I think
He's
Todd
an awesome
Haley.
value.
Todd Haley is like a boost to him versus coming out of like the garbage that was the Buffalo Bills sludge of a team. I mean, right? I mean, it's not often that you go to the Browns and say, "Man, I came from a worse team," but here we are. Yeah, and I think Landry is absolutely the Landry. Seeing them just like pepper Landry with red zone targets in the preseason was really dope.
Right. I mean, Josh Gordon's playing, but Tyrod has like very little chemistry with him because he didn't see him all summer.
And Todd Haley hates him.
Is that true?
Dude, Todd Haley hates Josh Gordon. It's so weird. He was like the one who was like, he's not going to start.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Really? Yeah. I don't know. I don't
He's
know.
a weirdo.
He is
I
a
actually think Landry carries a little bit more TD equity than most people will give him to, even if they do when they get down there to like the 5 and 6. So many reports, and this is one of the reasons we were all in on. I don't remember what week it was.
He was good there last year.
I mean, when he got 10 targets against the Eagles in the
Yes.
preseason, caught
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. But no, they're running a ton of like
Yep.
a ton of plays for him and scheming plays for him around the 5-yard line to get him worked in the end zone a lot too. So I think he just comes with a little bit more touchdown equity than a lot of people want to give him. He's a cash play wide receiver for me this week.
Yep. Agree. He's like a top 8 wide receiver play.
Yeah, agreed.
Considering price. Yeah, for sure. James Conner is the best play on the entire slate.
That's right.
I'm done even arguing with people. If you don't want to play him, you don't have to. I'm going to put him in all my lineups. Call it a day. Literally all of them.
Is that a true lock for you?
Yeah. You won't find a lineup for me on FanDuel, DraftKings, or Yahoo that doesn't have James Conner in it.
God, Yahoo's soft. I'm excited to play there this year.
You're playing
That's
Yahoo?
Yeah, dude. Yahoo's awesome.
Yeah, it keeps overlaying. Interface is kind of whatever, but
Yeah.
you get some good overlay and it's pretty soft and it's pretty easy to do some conversion on their salaries too. So we can chat later.
Yeah. If you want to like turn 500 into 1,000 as like a new Yahoo player, so easy because you get to play like rookie games. Everyone's really bad. Like during NBA, they would play people with like broken legs that have been out for like days. So, all right. So then also in Pitt, Antonio Brown, the weather is a bit of a concern, but I want to play him. And if I get Bruce Ellington or I get Xavier Rhodes out, then I will be playing Brown and Kamara. But if not, I'll probably be playing Kamara over just because of the weather. But I'm scared not to have him. He's also a guy that if I don't play him in cash, I'll probably have like 60%, 70% exposure to him in tournaments in my 150 maxes. The splits, he kills Cleveland. He kills without Bell.
That's the split, dude. He averages like 10 more points per game with Bell off the field. Like his touchdown equity shoots through the roof without Bell. That's the split, man. And that is the biggest debate, is the Brown Kamara debate for me. And unfortunately, I'm off AB at the moment. I might regret that, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I mean, you can make a really nice lineup with Brown, McCaffrey, Gordon, and Connor.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have some of that one. You will see that in some like single entries and stuff. That's for sure. But I think Kamara just takes the push for me because I think he'll be way higher owned than Brown will be.
Yeah. I don't think a whole lot more to talk about on this game other than
Scott. Are you playing Juju? I'm not playing Juju.
No.
Oh, also, if the weather gets really bad, boost your Cleveland defense exposure because they're cheap as shit.
Yeah.
And then also, as the weather gets more bad, you can add some Hyde too to go with your Cleveland defense. Other than that, no real strong anything else. KC, LAC. I wish Bosa would play, so this could just be Chargers onslaught. But I still think Chargers defense is okay, but I think losing Bosa is like a really big knock for them. I thought they were like up in contention with Baltimore for the top defense. It's just out the door for me now with Bosa not playing. I think people are not taking his loss to heart. He's the best defensive player on their entire team. It's not remotely close. What do you guys think about the Chargers with Bosa being out? I still really like Gordon, and then I'm going to let Scott go on Keenan Allen. But first, give me your thoughts on Gordon and the Bosa news.
I love Melvin Gordon. I debated between him and Christian McCaffrey for like days, but I've finally settled on Gordon. I just, we're hoping McCaffrey has this amazing workload, but we know Melvin Gordon has this amazing workload. Like we talked about Stephon Diggs injury report weeks. That's actually like nowhere near as impressive as Melvin Gordon's splits last year when he was off the injury report versus on it. When he was off the injury report, he had an identical workload in terms of expected fantasy points as Todd Gurley, only Le'Veon Bell was higher. And Anthony Lynn said earlier this offseason, like his biggest regret last year was not getting Melvin Gordon more targets. High implied total, good game script, massive workload, huge scoring potential. There's just like so much to like there. And then Keenan Allen, I don't see why he's chalk when, Larry Fitzgerald should be chalk at a cheaper price in a far better matchup when Keenan Allen's playing up against Kendall Fuller, who was the PFF's #1 graded slot cornerback last year.
Here's my question though. How come Washington was like randomly bad against slot wide receivers with Fuller there?
I don't know. You see that sometimes, and it's because a slot wide receiver is still only going to see 50 or maybe like 65% of his targets.
It's probably the movement too, right? I mean, like Keenan can move and get away from Fuller because Fuller won't follow him.
Right, but this preseason, Keenan's been playing in the slot on like 70% of his routes when last year it was more like 49%.
I know that. I just mean in the sense that they can put him out wide and just move him to the slot, and then Fuller is going to get stuck on like a tight end.
Yeah. I mean that'd be smart. They should do that.
So I think that will happen, which is what scares me with Keenan because like if he gets put on a corner in the slot that's not Kendall Fuller, I'm terrified. Like, what's going to happen on that play?
I don't know. I kind of want to back up Scott's take on Keenan Allen a little bit too. Is the Chiefs are very, very good at limiting short yardage plays, right, Scott? I believe it's something like
they are. But I'm pretty sure Eric Berry is like the reason for that.
So I just looked it up. Washington actually gave up the 7th fewest fantasy points to slot wide receivers last year. So like in the slot. So
then it was guys getting moved because I know there were
it must have been guys getting moved then. But you
fucking wrecked them.
You can really easily move guys on Washington last year. At least you could have because Josh Norman sticks to his side. The other cornerback stinks. Can you do that this week?
That's my concern.
Yeah.
Like I think they can just like move Keenan away from him and then wreck. But I mean, I get where you're coming from. I think there are concerns that people aren't taking into account.
I mean, Larry Fitzgerald. That's my counter. It's like why Keenan over Larry?
I actually think it's a really good take, especially when the Chiefs get beat on plays that are like 10, 11 yards downfield rather than over the middle of the field. And Keenan Allen's average depth of target is what, like 5.5 yards or something ridiculous like that. So, no, that's a good point. This is why I love this podcast, man. It gets me talking. This is good. This is good, boys. Yeah. It's good to be back.
For me, mostly like I'm mostly like talking in my head because I'm scared of Keenan, but I'm not playing him in cash. I already know that. I'm just scared of him, I guess.
What does, and then we can move on from this game, but what does Bosa being out do for Kelce?
I don't think it boosts Kelce so much as it boosts Tyreek, and I hate it.
Okay.
Tyreek's another slate killer. That's going to be every week this season. He's just like, good matchup or bad, he has the potential to ruin you.
And the biggest knock against him this week was that Mahomes wasn't going to have time for those bombs.
And now Bosa's out.
Yeah. Right.
Dude, Melvin and the Chargers correlation was it was just perfect.
Oh, it was so good. And it's not even like it's still the old foot injury. The Chiefs or the Chargers are like, oh, by the way, there's a new foot injury. It's like, oh, thanks. I would have not drafted them in every single redraft league. Like, cool. But I mean, yeah, you can't play like the Chargers were like a borderline cash game defense for the $1,000 savings on Baltimore, but they are not anymore. Like not remotely. And I don't think that's being talked about enough.
It's probably just Saints and Kamara now, man. If you want the correlation play,
right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want to throw some Chiefs into like your Millie Maker, like maybe they win you $1 million. I know TJ Calkins is doing it because he's insane. But that's
one thing I'll say about the Chiefs is remember Andy Reid coaching the game of his life against the Patriots and just blowing them up. And that's a narrative on Andy Reid where you give him like extra days to prepare for an opponent, and he's going to come up with something really special. And
for his script. And then once the script goes away, then he'll blow a timeout.
Oh, of course. Of course.
3rd and 3.
Blow a timeout.
Yeah. He'll call a timeout on himself calling a timeout.
It's funny, Scott, the lineup you sent me was the lineup I was talking about that you would see in single entries from me. That's the lineup.
I'm not going to say it. I was looking at my lineups, and I was like, oh, my God, I guarantee you Johnny has like 80 of this. And I sent it over to him, and he's like, yep.
Oh, it's absolutely one of my favorites, but I'm not going to say it. It's pretty easy to put together. Like if you put this lineup together, then you need your brain examined. But anyways, so let's move on to Seattle, Denver. I think Case Keenum is similarly as good of a play as Dalton. A limited quarterback who has really good weapons against a garbage defense. And I think the plus that Keenum has that Dalton doesn't have is that I think Seattle will be more competitive than the Colts will on the opposite side of the ball. So I think this game has more shootout potential than the Colts Bengals game. I don't know. What do you guys think?
So this is another, like the Cincy game, the line is weird and doesn't make any sense to me. Seattle's defense is not good.
Bad. Although Earl Thomas is back.
Even with that in mind, Denver is playing at home. Tend to play much better at home. What I really like is his 2 wide receivers. Very cheap this week, especially Sanders, who's Sanders
is the best
must-play territory.
Wide receiver play on the slate, and it's not close.
Yeah.
Hodge, I mean, do you have any strong convictions on this one?
No, I really don't want to use Baldwin against this defense. Although for what it's worth, I think he's pretty much 100%. He's not listed on the final injury report, so that's news. So
he said he's gonna be
dude
80 to 85% all year.
This year is gonna be bullshit on the injury reports. I'm just gonna say this now because this is the second year that probable is gone, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So all these dudes who would be listed as probable, who have a thing, a ding, a whatever, but they know they're gonna play, are now listed as full non-injury. Jay Ajayi was not full non-injury on Thursday.
Ooh.
But he was listed as so because there is no probable. He's dealing with a foot thing. He'll probably deal with a foot thing for the next few weeks. He didn't start. Jay Ajayi didn't just not start. So, like, you have your Baldwins, your Thielens, your Ajayis. Like, these guys are going to have these things, these dings, these whatevers. And you got to, like, we got to really figure Jordan Reed. I mean, we got to, like, Rex Burkhead do more work, and it sucks. It really sucks.
That's a great point. I'll also say with Doug Baldwin is he's going to be against Chris Harris Jr., so the match was just brutal. But because he's dinged up and the matchup is brutal, what does that mean for Tyler Lockett? But he's also dinged up. So what does that mean for Nick Vannett, Jerron Brown? I don't know. Russell
bring up Vannett because I've been fighting people over that guy for like 3 days. You don't need to play Nick Vannett at 2,600.
No, I mean you're not playing anyone this week, but one of those guys is going to score an abnormally high amount of fantasy points.
Right. No, I get you. And I know what Hodge is saying, and that Doug Baldwin is like underpriced. It's like one of those Beckham against Ramsey, Baldwin against Chris Harris.
Right.
The price is great. And if you want to game stack this game, it's Baldwin or it's Lockett for me.
You don't think Marshall carries any touchdown equity with like the height advantage, right? Doesn't he have a huge height advantage in the red zone against Roby and Brock and Tremaine?
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
I won't believe these reports that Brandon Marshall has found new life or something.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like, if you're game stacking this, you're doing it in some extremely large field. Right. So the whole, Wilson, Marshall, Sanders, Sanders, is that 70% guy that you're talking about. And the other two are extremely cheap.
No, you could, but I don't know. I want to imagine this game shoots out, but I'm probably wrong.
Russell Wilson's in value trap territory.
I know, dude.
He has one of those games like he had last year. Is like offensive line sucks, offensive weapons suck. I don't care. 33 points.
Yep.
Like, fuck.
Yep.
No, Russell Wilson is another one in that, like, if I'm gonna spend $6,000 on a guy in a tournament that no one's gonna have,
that's your guy.
If you want to, I probably won't do it, but you could make a case for a Russell Sanders lineup, just nobody else. Yeah, I'm not playing Chris Carson.
I'm not playing Royce Freeman, but I do think he's a good play.
Royce Freeman's a normal slate. Royce Freeman's fine. He's just not as good of a value as people say he is, because Devontae Booker is like so much better in pass protection, and we've seen how these rookies get treated when they can't pass protect. It happened to Kareem Hunt last year, and he was like way better than Royce Freeman at football.
Right.
So, yeah. And Seattle, like, if there's one thing they can do like remotely okay, it's stop the run.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other hot takes?
Next game, baby.
Dallas, Carolina. I have one play in this game. It's Christian McCaffrey. If you want to get frisky, you can play either of these defenses because it's going to be kind of gross. You can make a case for Devin Funchess. That's about it.
If Zeke carries really low ownership, I think he's in play in tournaments. I will say, as much as I love McCaffrey, if forced to choose, and I am being forced to choose in a lot of different lineups, I am going Gordon. The one reason for that is just when Dallas has Zeke in the lineup.
So slow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Pace is definitely not only is pace a concern in that game because of Zeke, pace is a concern because the offensive lines are in trouble. There's going to be penalties. There's going to be just a bunch of nonsense in that
That's
game.
a good point.
Which sucks. I mean, obviously no weather concerns, so you're not worried about any, weather interfering, but yeah, pace is a concern for that, for sure.
It's one of the main reasons why Watson's the play over Cam.
Ooh. I think
Yeah.
that might be right. I really think that might be. Yeah, I think that's right.
It is, and it's ownership too.
You're not hearing that anywhere else either.
It's ownership for sure, and
in general.
Give me the dude in the Houston New England game over the dude in the Carolina Dallas game.
That's what I'm saying. And to me, I don't understand why it's such a debate. I think people are scared of an unknown with Watson, so they go to the devil that they know with Cam, right? Whatever that stupid saying is. But I'm totally fine with Watson. I'm firing him up. He should outperform Cam, and it's not even close.
Yep, I'm good with that. And then the last game, Redskins Cardinals. I think this is an interesting game that I think people are just sort of overlooking because there's some good plays. Reed, if we can get any type of confirmation that he's like 85%,
he's a lock.
You just lock him in and just call it a fucking day.
Yep.
Larry Fitzgerald, great play. Washington was atrocious in the interior last year. They were bad against tight ends. They were bad against wide receivers for like run after the catch, that kind of stuff. And Kendall Fuller was really like the only guy they had to like prevent people from busting them up in the slot. So now Fitz is going to play against a nobody. They're not good.
Fabian Moreau, 55 career snaps. And on those snaps last year, he ranked like third worst of 180 cornerbacks in fantasy points per route run. Everything just saying he's supposed to smash. Like he was wide receiver 5 in fantasy points last year. Now he gets Sam Bradford, who targeted slot wide receivers far more often than Carson Palmer.
His short passes are so accurate.
Yes, and on top of that, there's like 200 targets missing from the offense. And on top of that, David Johnson is the only other guy on the roster with more than 35 receptions in a single season.
Ricky Seals-Jones is a
great play. Right. I'm just saying. That's a stat.
Yeah. I think David Johnson, Larry Fitz, and Ricky Seals are great
plays. Yeah. Yep.
Because this is going to be a concentrated offense that people
What do you think about Bradford then? Shocking everyone week 1.
Bradford is really interesting on Yahoo because he's basically like the cheapest starting quarterback.
Yeah.
He's like $22 on Yahoo, which is I think the cheapest starting.
Yeah, Dalton's like 25 though.
Okay,
so it was very hard.
Flacco and Peterman are 21 and 20, but Bradford is 22, which is like down with Eli and them. And I've considered using him in cash on Yahoo because he's just so cheap.
Wait, hold on. Dalton's 25, right?
Yeah.
I don't think the $3 is anywhere near worth. Just sorry, I don't want to get off track on this game.
It depends. It's a construction thing on Yahoo.
I think definitely get it right.
Yeah,
but unless ownership, but like outside of that,
right? And no, I mean, I probably will end up with Tyrod or Dalton or somebody, but Sam Bradford is like fully in play on Yahoo as someone that no one's going to play and is like way cheap.
Yeah.
Also, I just quickly I want to say this for people that are playing Yahoo. Jamal Williams is I think $14 on Yahoo. It's like broken. And he's on the main slate, so you play Jamal Williams as well as James Conner, and then just figure it out from there. So and then on the other side of the ball, I think it's Reed. That's it. I also think Alex Smith has reasonable prices on the sites. If you want to toss him in with some Jordan Reed, Alex Smith stacks, it's fine. The Cardinals were blitzing their dicks off in the preseason. I figure that will continue. And if it does, Jordan Reed and Smith could have a good game because the more they blitz, the more mobile we might see Smith get. Sound about right?
Yeah, I think that does sound about right. I think David Johnson's such a clear pivot off of Kamara. Like, and it's almost to the point where it's like Odell, where I think people can just see how clear of a pivot that is, that it drives his ownership up a little bit. But he's like running back 1 for me in large field stuff.
Yeah, and on Yahoo, where it's very easy to play him over Kamara, I'll probably do that. Yeah, I think David Johnson's one of the best tournament plays, and then Ricky Seals-Jones I think is my favorite tournament play at tight end because no one really wants to play him, and I think he's like a really, really strong play. The Redskins were really bad against the tight end last year, like really bad. Were they third worst, Scott? Something like that? Second, third, fourth worst?
Yeah. Schedule adjusted bottom 3.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's about it. Scott, thanks for coming on.
Dude, this
guys,
is the best DFS podcast in the game. I don't care who heard me. It's true. It's the best.
Yeah, you used to be part of it, and then you left us to go corporate.
Fuck it, we can just make Scott a regular. We can kick Levitan and Silva out of the schedule. Just make Scott a regular.
Life goes on, you know. But yeah, guys, make sure you check out Scott's RotoGrinders piece. Make sure you, if you have not subscribed to PFF and you are planning to, hit Scott up. Make sure you sign up through his link because he's doing all the heavy lifting over there, and he deserves any kickbacks that he can get. And then most of his content is on PFF. His actual opportunity stuff is what you really want to be paying attention to. You will find like some really good nuggets, especially like the Alex Collins stuff, to see guys who just like are getting unlucky or have gotten too lucky. It's good stuff to know. But for me and for Hodge and for Scott, we're out. Peace.
Love you guys.